Oh my goodness, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Eating Me podcast. This is Alicia, and I am really excited to be back on the podcast this week because I have Raheem Nelson here with me. I am so excited that you are here with us and to just continue this conversation that I'm having with people about liberation as it relates to your experience as a Black person, America, or just wherever you've lived, because who knows, you might have lived beyond that. This is us, sharing this experience right now. So thank you so much again for being on the podcast, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, Alicia.
You're so welcome. So before we get started in all the things, right, if you could share with everyone, because I was actually really interested in the work that you do. So I was looking at actually like an article that was sharing that you do like digital recording as it relates to like you being in meetings and like
Yeah.
providing like explain, because I was like, wait a minute. When I was reading that, I was like, okay, right, you must explain this. This sounds so cool and innovative in ways that I've never even heard of. So yeah, so what is this actual work? What does it involve, and how does it benefit those that need this type of service?
Sure. I'm so glad you asked about that, to start. It's called graphic recording, and I do a lot of things as an artist. And for a few years now, I was thinking, what can I do that's going to be able to be beneficial to me in terms of like a monetary value, and also beneficial to others in terms of like either healing in the mental health space or just like increasing knowledge in my community. Like I want to have those two things go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So graphic recording is a skill where, myself, the artist, would go into like a meeting, a fireside chat, or a conference, and I'd be creating artwork that would support the speaker. Said another way, I capture the main idea of whatever's being talked about in like a meeting setting. It could be like an hour meeting, 2 hour, 3 hour meeting. I would be creating a visual representation of that meeting. So words and pictures. Like if it's about network marketing, or if it's about affordable housing, I would create a whole graphic based on that and based on what the speaker's talking about. And usually I like to do it where it's projected either behind the speaker or off to the side. So they may say something that really resonates with the audience, and then that will be something that I pick up on too and put that into the illustration. So it's beneficial to support the speaker and to also keep the audience engaged too. So like I've done it live, I've done it on Zoom, and every time I've created art for these different clients, whether I'm traveling or doing it locally in New Haven, it goes over really well, where even if you weren't at the talk or the conference, you still get pretty much the big picture of what was being talked about. So that's pretty much like my biggest service that I'm offering as an artist, is like this graphic recording where I go into meetings and then you're getting a custom piece of art that can be printed out. It can be used as like greeting cards. The city of New Haven, I just did that for one of my pieces. And it's really all about bringing light to different conversations that need to be had. It could be something that's like historically difficult to talk about. Like I did one for a client in the mental health space, and it was about like an intergenerational conversation. So like all the different ways where, conversations may like break down in terms of different age groups. Like this group over here is judging this group for this group for that. How can we come together as a community and as a people? So as an artist, what I see to do and, in doing my part is creating a visual representation to give people a voice, because when people see it illustrated out, it's like, well, those are my thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and this artist was able to take that and highlight it. I think it's really empowering for people to see.
That is like really one of the coolest things that I've heard as it relates to like conveying a message in more what like in a way that goes beyond just the verbal, right? Where it's
Right.
something that's like we've written out these notes, you're in a meeting and it's like this is what the gist of the meeting was about. Like, because I am a visual learner, like I like reading things, but when it's something that's like artwork or something, that it really allows you to, one, take in that information, especially if you were in that actual meeting. You're using your senses beyond just the listening, like you're seeing it, like everything is involved, and it's like, okay, now it really sinks in a way that it might not have before. Like you're pretending like you're listening, right? You're just trying to look at it. So in the meeting is like, what's for lunch, right? Like,
Exactly.
and so for that too, it's like, how did you come up with this idea around, okay, this needs to be incorporated in spaces like this?
I was doing it as a part of my day job at the time a few years ago in Brooklyn, and I was commuting back and forth from New Haven.
No
So that
way.
ended up being like a bit too much, mentally, spiritually, and physically. But the skills that I picked up at this job, I was able to just kind of turn into my own business with the graphic recording, working with clients directly. And also work with an agency in New York City called Drawing Booth. Well, they're based in New York City and London, and I want to say Chicago. And they'll contract me to go to different places to graphic record. A lot of NDAs involved and everything, but
Right.
it pays well. I get to work with really cool people, and I get to travel. Most recently, I did it in New Orleans. So for my day job, I work as a communications and marketing director for the Milford Arts Council in Milford, Connecticut. So they have this flexibility where I can like work remote days and stuff like that because I'm working from my phone or a computer, making Instagram reels and posts and just putting out whatever needs to be marketed. So I had this arrangement with them where I was able to go and take this contract work with Drawing Booth, go to New Orleans, work in the mornings, and then kind of go back to the hotel or the French Quarter, and then do everything else I needed to do for my day job. So like everything like had a lot of harmony. And then being the professional that I am, like even before like I got off the plane, I was checking in with the client, letting them know when I was going to get to the hotel, and just kind of getting an idea of what they were looking for in terms of the graphics, like just having this series of meetings with them. And it was all happened like really quickly because we were waiting for like some certain assets and everything to come together. So it was like just thinking on my feet. And it was all about superheroes, which is definitely one of my favorite genres since I was a kid. So being able to take like my knowledge base already and apply it to tech and AI space and put everything together was like a lot of fun. And I love having assignments where I can just get there, do the job, email them the files, and then they're like not really even that many revisions. Like they were just super happy I got there early each day, dressed professionally, did my job, and like engaged with the people that I was working with. So I try to like show up like that wherever I'm at for any contract jobs and stuff like that. Because it's like you never know who's going to rehire you, and you just
Right.
want to leave a place better than you found it.
I love that. And it's like, as you're talking about your job, I was literally thinking, I was like, Raheem is living in this whole idea of liberation, right? Like
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of like really thinking outside the box in terms of how to monetize your skills,
Hmm.
how to, just put yourself out there in ways that might seem scary for those who would want to do something like this, especially as a Black person in America, right?
Hmm.
So, have you found because of you stepping outside of, the traditional like 9 to 5 work, that this work is more fulfilling in a way that you wouldn't have been afforded in a traditional job? And if that's the case, it has it continued to be that way, or have there been bumps along the way?
Yeah, so definitely yes. I absolutely love what I do. I feel immensely fulfilled to have this flexibility and empowerment in my job, in what I do for Milford and what I do as a creative entrepreneur, and also what I do as an educator. And I just want to go back a little bit and talk about the times where I wasn't really empowered and wasn't
Mm,
feeling upbeat or optimistic or anything like that. And I understand that everything happens for a reason. So I'm like really blessed and grateful to be where I'm at now. And I'm not going to forget where I came from. Like I've come a long way. So the long story short is I used to work in New Haven Public Schools as a SPED paraprofessional. And for those that don't know, SPED meaning special needs or special education. And so I had been working with one-to-one with a special needs kid for pretty much over a decade. Like I started this job as a SPED paraprofessional pretty much out of college. I went to the School of Visual Arts, which is a college in Manhattan. I went for cartooning. I studied oil painting, which was amazing, and other things outside my field too. And just being in the arts, having a degree in the arts, like, some artists will go to their field right away and, maybe find success that way. I think for me, what it looked like was getting my degree and then kind of, I don't want to say falling into, but like pursuing education as a way to do some good in the community and also pursue my art career while also being able to pay the rent
Mm.
and do everything that I need to do. So just realizing that that's what it was going to be. And so I was in this job for a long time, pretty much working one-to-one with a student that had his challenges, and then working in what's called a resource room. So it was like I was working one-to-one with a student, and then he would graduate, and then I would kind of float around to different students. And I did this job for a while, as long as it fulfilled me. And after it didn't, I looked for something else that was going to kind of be closer to what I wanted to do in the arts. But I guess what I want to say is like it just took a lot of perseverance to get to where I'm at now. Like for the summers, for example, paraprofessionals are not paid a wage that reflects everything that they do, especially coming from that background. Paraprofessionals are the backbone any school system. Like you take out the paraprofessionals of the school system, the school is going to be very hard pressed to find substitute teachers and fulfill the needs of these kids. Like we're just very essential, but we're not really paid that essential wage. It's like you got to get certified, you got to do this, and you got to do that, and the third. And there was a lot of pressure on me by administration to either get certified to teach art because they knew that's what I did and that's what I loved, or to maybe get certified to be a special needs teacher, like lead classroom teacher. And while I was capable of getting that certification and doing that, it wasn't what my heart wanted. And I knew I would be just doing it for somebody else to make somebody else happy or to do what was expected of me. And I didn't want to do that. And the summers were difficult because you're only getting paid through the school year. So when the kids are out for the summer, anybody that was a para, sometimes classroom teachers too, but they would make more money. You have to find an alternate form of work. So for me, some summers were very good where I was doing work with the Arts Council of Greater New Haven, curating art shows, maybe working for Arts for Learning Connecticut, which is another program where I was go and be able to teach art and, make a good salary for those summer months. And other times it was difficult where the clients would dry up and I'd be looking like, okay, what am I going to do to pay my rent? And then, what am I going to do to pay my mortgage because I live with my wife now? And this past summer, I think I reached a breaking point where I thought I could do Uber the entire summer and be able to sustain myself. And maybe the first few weeks were fine. But when I realized just how much I would need to cover the mortgage and then all the other bills, like it didn't really add up with the amount of time I would have to spend doing Uber, the amount of time I wasn't home, and the amount of time I was just really frustrated. So realizing that I was losing sleep and I really was not happy continuing life like this, where I would, work during the school year, barely make enough money, pretty much have to freelance on top of my day job to pay the bills. I was like, what else can happen? Like, what is going to have to give? And for a minute, I thought, okay, maybe I will get certified and just go that route. But somebody told me not to. So I hopped on LinkedIn, and for a few weeks, I would just be posting, hey, I'm looking for a job in the arts. Like my skill set is A, B, and C. And I had these interviews lined up. And for the most part, I did not get these positions until somebody from the Milford Arts Council reached out to me saying they were looking for a marketing and communication specialist. And I had a few clients during the pandemic. One was for climate change, and I did a big social media campaign for him. So it was like pretty much boots on the ground, fundraising, Twitter at the time, which is now X, Instagram, and Facebook, and just getting out this guy's message, having client meetings, just bringing everything together. So I knew I had that kind of experience, and I knew it was the conversation that I wanted to have. So I just had my fingers crossed that I would be able to get this job with a respectable salary, being able to have a few days remote. And I had a meeting with my now executive director. And, she just asked me like, hey, what are you looking for? Are you looking for something that's going to be like more in like a freelance capacity or something that's more like a full-time position? I was like, I want to do full-time. Like I'm in the educational system. I'm feeling burnt out. I need something that's in the arts. And I had a feeling I was going to get the job before the meeting ended, just because I saw what their needs were. I saw I could fulfill that. I only knew Milford, Connecticut from like the Post Mall. So like I was kind of curious anyways. Like I didn't even know there was an arts council in Milford where you could just like be on the Metro North, hop off, and then the arts council's right there. So when I was learning about it, I was like, okay, this is not only something I can see myself in, a role that I'm stepping into, where I get to use all these different skill sets to help enhance the community, but like I can get to know this community and I can use that to enhance the work. And then just having the remote days, I'm able to like take meetings off site. I'm able to go to New York if I want to work, or New Orleans, and just be able to like make a difference for like my entrepreneurship, but also what I'm doing for the Arts Council as well. So everything kind of like works itself out that way, or I'm doing something over here. It's actually feeding into what I'm doing in Milford. So like, I absolutely love it.
That is amazing. First of all, I am like impressed with what you do because I'm a school nurse. Like I said, I'm a school nurse, and I work closely with paraprofessionals in
Yeah.
the school setting. And so when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is amazing, because the work that you all do is so it's just it's a lot of work. It's rewarding, but at the same time, like you said, the pay it's like slim to none. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just had to mention that because I was like, oh my gosh, that is like something that's near and dear to my heart, because
Oh, wow.
I deal with that on a daily basis. And so yeah, I had to point that out. It's like, oh my gosh, it's
I'm
just
glad you said something.
right. It's funny how things just kind of come full circle in that way.
Yeah, they do. Mhm.
But no, back to the work that you're doing. I just think that's so beautiful how you went from working students in the school setting, they're completely saying, I need to go back to my passion and what is really lighting me up
Mhm.
as a person. And to know that not only did you do that, you took that leap, but you were like, completely like thriving in the work
Oh,
that
thank
you're
you.
doing. I think that is just amazing,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I love that for people when I see that they have those opportunities to just take that, and then not only take it, just see, oh my gosh, this is where I'm meant to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's beautiful. I love it. Like I really
Yeah.
do.
I had to take the leap. Absolutely had to.
Yeah, and I get that, because even with myself, like I still work in the school setting, obviously to sustain myself. Let's be serious. But then there's other things that I want to pursue. And I feel like for people who are in this position, I mean, listen to this actual conversation,
Mhm.
thinking like, is this something that's really attainable? It's like Raheem's living proof. Like here we are.
Yeah. It took, I'll say it took longer than I thought to get where I'm at. And
Mhm.
I still see that there's still more room to grow. There's always more room to grow. I think I've learned to be patient with myself though.
Mm.
There were definitely times where it's like, oh, why don't I have this now? Why don't I have this now? And I realized like I'm in a place where I'm just ready for all the things that are coming my way. All the conversations I've had were either about like curating art shows, getting my work printed more. Since I'm a mobile digital artist, I pretty much like 2, 3 years, I wasn't really printing my work because, as a paraprofessional, you only make a certain amount of money. I was just thinking, let me just get as much contract work as I can. I'm not really going to think about getting my work printed and presenting it somewhere because I'm paying out of pocket to put my work on canvases and things like that. And being in a place now where I have much better financial standing with my job and the contract work that I'm getting, which is increased, now is the time to have more physical art shows. I'm in a show right now in Roosevelt Island, New York City. I had never been to Roosevelt Island. I went to school in Manhattan and everything, School of Visual Arts, which is on East 23rd Street, our main campus. And it just kind of, I guess I kind of gave up like having physical art shows. Like, okay, like there's no money in that. Like,
Mm.
it's not something I want to pursue. And I think, like, for one, getting into a job in the arts, working with artists, empowering artists, just kind of made me realize I need to do things that are going to light me up and empower me as well, empower the artists within me, that I try to just do that every day. So when there was an opportunity to get my work in the show, and a good friend of mine, Michelin Hess, who's an amazing comic book illustrator, invited myself and select other artists to exhibit work in New York. I was like, okay, I haven't had my work in a show in a long time in a physical space, and I haven't had my work in New York City in a long time. And to me, Roosevelt Island, and you take the tramway from like Midtown Manhattan to this little community island that's technically part of Manhattan, but it feels like another borough. Like having my work there, I was like, this sounds pretty cool. And then for Black History Month, also, the pieces I contributed, they're like a set. One is
Mm.
of my wife, and then the other piece is a piece that helped me meet my now wife. So I went to Europe a few years ago, and it was like a artist trip that I created for myself. I had always wanted to go since like art college, and then I was working on a children's book at the time. So I was basically able to finance it from the proceeds I got from doing the children's book for a private client. And I was wrestling with the fact that I wanted to go to so many places in Europe, but so I was trying to narrow it down. I managed to pack in, I was gone for a month pretty much. I packed in London, Paris, Avignon, which is south of France, Barcelona, and then Lisbon at the tail end of it. So I'm like going to the Louvre, I'm going to the Portrait Gallery, all these different places, soaking up all this inspiration, getting up every day, taking photos, eating good food, and making paintings. Like I take my iPad everywhere with me, and I would just be in the Louvre, like making artwork, like doing studies of what I would see. And then when I get back home to New Haven, just like having all this inspiration and being super inspired, and also, being single at the time, thinking like, wow, I can't believe I was like in Paris without being with a significant other. So like I came home wanting to change that. And I think probably not at that time, but like now I definitely believe in like speaking things into existence. So a friend of mine invited me to contribute a piece of art to the show he was organizing at Art Space New Haven. It was on the music of Solange Knowles. I was like, okay, like I was listening to her music anyway, like while I was traveling. I was like, I can definitely come up with a piece. So I wanted to take, and it's actually here too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's huge.
That is
Exactly.
gorgeous.
For the show. And it enabled me to meet my wife because she was one of the hosts of the show. And from there, we're married now, and we decided to have our reception at the art gallery where we met. So like everything again, full circle. Contributing this piece behind me, and then the painting I did of her, and it's called Gallery Riva. Doing that enabled me to like continue to share the story and everything. And this piece has also been featured in Times Square for an exhibition called NFT NYC, which I'm going to be speaking at this year. So like just all these big career accomplishments from this painting, and then the one I did with my wife, and then just what all that means. So it's really great doing these portraits and these pieces of art that like speak to a larger narrative, like a larger story, where like my life is going from here to here.
It's just so beautiful to just hear you talk about all of your experiences in a way that is just like, yeah, this is my life. And you can see it in your eyes, like I really did all these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And as it relates to someone, because I'm like wanting to shift into this whole idea around your thoughts and feelings on being someone, a Black person, experiencing your ideas around liberation. Do you feel like your art is something that kind of drives that idea, or is it something beyond that where you find liberation as a Black person in America, and even with you being so well traveled?
Yeah, it's like a lot of things that caused me to be liberated. I think there was this juxtaposition, what I was doing in my day job and not feeling liberated, and then what I was starting to create in my art career that caused me to be very liberated. Like having this feeling of being in New York, networking with people, going to fashion shows, creating these really cool illustrations for great clients, and then just being on this creative high while I was doing those things. And then having Monday pull around, and I'm like, okay, I got to go to this job that I'm not entirely crazy about, where I don't feel liberated. So I knew I needed to like bridge that and just be in a place and a space where I feel liberated all around. And there's some days, that are more difficult than others, but for the most part, like I feel very, very liberated in what I do. I'll pull something else up too. So I'm a big proponent of mental health. My wife is a licensed clinical social worker, trauma therapist, and she works with a practice called quality counseling. I know her boss very well too. They're great people. So I'm not necessarily a therapist myself, but like I try to bring things I pick up from her, things I pick up from my dad, because my dad is a retired milieu counselor for Yale. And I try to like not only put that into my own work and what I do, but also the days where I feel like are challenging for me, if I'm maybe not able to, maybe my therapy session is a week out or something. So I found this really cool journal, healing journal for Black men on Amazon. And I had a few challenges come up recently, and this has been like really instrumental for like, I guess, hitting the reset button.
Right.
Because I'm at a point now, like where I have so many clients that I'm working with, either short term or long term. I'm trying to, I guess, finish up what's on my plate right now and take some time for me, or I'm able to like work on some solo personal projects, because it's been a very long time since I've done like a portrait illustration or like an urban landscape. And
Mm.
sometimes that takes its toll, where it's like everything, mostly everything I'm doing creatively on a creative level is for others. And I love creating work for other people, but I need to have that balance for creating work for myself too. So like I've made this
Okay.
promise to myself that I'm going to finish what's on my plate right now. I've got like 3 projects. One is a mural that I'm finishing up and doing some revisions on. Second one is a children's book, and the third one is a short animated film that's going to have some narration to it. So yeah, the promise I made, I'm going to finish these 3, and then I'm really just going to take some time to just like really take on new clients outside of graphic recording. And I'll take on graphic recording stuff because that's usually like an hour or 2 hours here, and I'm done.
Mhm.
So I want to carve out this time where I can like maybe work on a short comic book for myself, or maybe a portrait illustration or a still life. Like I'll see these things that inspire me, and then kind of have to remind myself I have some obligations I have to finish up. So I'll like make a note of it. It's like, okay, when I'm finished, I'm going to do this and this and this
Yeah.
and this. So I think for me, carving out time for myself is good for mental health. I love photography. I've got the camera set up behind me. So what I used to do, I love doing like the fashion influencer thing, wearing suits to work, documenting all that stuff. I still love working with photographers, but now I'm in a place where I do it so much, like I pretty much do it every day. I was like, I need to find ways to shoot myself. So I ended up investing in this remote shutter where I can just kind of snap away whenever I feel the inspiration strike for something. So I try to find like these quick little things I can do to stay inspired while getting back to the other commitments that I have. And it just kind of all balances out that way.
I love that. I love that you have like intentionally like put these things in place in your life to ensure that like the momentum is going in some way. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like sometimes with people, no fault of anyone's, but I think sometimes when we're not set up with the right foundation or like the proper tools to like move forward, we kind of get stuck. And it's like, how do I
Yeah.
move beyond this? And then you just kind of like stay in that kind of like that hamster wheel of like, I can't get off this craziness. I don't know what's
Right.
going on, right?
Right.
But I wanted to go back because the journal that you mentioned and that you showed there, for those who can't see, he shared a journal there. So it's called the journal. What is it called again? A healing journal for Black men, prompts to help you reflect, grow, and live with pride. And I can't see the author's name. What's the author's name?
Danny Angelo Fluker Jr.
Okay, I will share that in the show notes because I think it's so important to like share resources like that because like I said, sometimes you don't have the foundation or the proper resources to kind of get yourself out of a rut or whatever that looks like to be creative and to just, find certain passions or to help you keep moving forward in that way. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that because that is really helpful because I feel like
No problem.
especially, thank you. I feel like with a lot of people, particularly Black people, we are now getting to a point where we are actually welcoming in the idea around mental health being a priority in our lives and in our family and friends' lives, and not just. I mean, I grew up in Indiana, Southern Indiana, and so basically it's the South. And so
Yeah.
everything was church, church, church. You pray to God, and He's going to pray. Once you pray, He's going to get rid of whatever. And it's like He's giving you the discernment, other things in your life to help you. So I love that. This is a part of your process, and I hope that this will then, spearhead this for someone else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hope so too. And I definitely believe in the power of prayer. I think I've always been more of a spiritual person, not so
Yeah.
much religious. I mean, organized religion is fine, but the spirituality piece of it, I think that's where I really get lit up. And I always try to balance that with things I can do for myself to support the prayer, like with the book I shared. I have like three journals, I think. One for work, one for like my calendar, and then the other one for like just traveling because I love to be really intentional when I travel. I'll be going back to Barcelona. That'll be my next trip for what's coming up, and I'm just kind of planning it out, doing things ahead of time, like what cameras am I gonna bring? Where do I want to spend the most time? Do I want to go to the beach, or I'll go to this area? So I always just try to be like be super intentional about it, but also allow room to like go off the beaten path. I like to have that balance. I like to go on with the game plan and also have the options to do other things too.
And that kind of keeps you, resilient. You know what I'm saying? Because I think sometimes when we're kind of like stuck in a plan, it's like, oh, it has to work this way. And when something kind of like takes you off of that actual path, you're like, where do
Right.
I go now?
Yeah.
So I love that that is a part of just like your process and how you deal with your day to day, just livelihood and just your career. I think that's amazing. I wanted to go back though. You mentioned a few times this whole idea, or not idea, but your actual creation of children's books. So first, let's talk about the fact that okay, your first children's book. What's the title of it?
So trying to think if I did one for myself. They were done for private clients. The work
Oh,
I've done, I mean, I guess maybe one of my first ones was for I had a series that I'm still kind of retooling and everything called Little Robots. And Little Robots is pretty much like my version of Charlie Brown, Peanuts, and kind of taking like silly things I would see at work or, just doing like what I see in politics and making it cute and making it palatable. And I had a version that was like for teenagers and adults and a version that was for kids. So like I would publish two versions of the book at a time so that different age groups would be able to have something to check out and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. I published them on Lulu.com, which is a print on demand site. Really enjoy using it because it's easy. And the children's books I've done for private clients, I'm working on my second one now. The first one was called Dream Chronicles. And it's interesting because both of these titles, the one I'm working on now and the one I did for the private client, they're both aimed at empowering Black girls. And that just makes me really happy in itself that I could work with authors that want to do that. Like that's their mission. So the first author, her name is Kamika Glenn, and she's an educator. I think she's a transformational coach as well. And she had this idea, a girl who falls asleep, and this part wasn't in the script, but I envisioned it as I was drawing it and reading the script, that she didn't necessarily have a close relationship with her mother. And in this dream world that she finds herself in, she becomes close to her mother because her mother is like her dream guide. So she's navigating this dream with her mother, going through like this museum of dreams and learning about these historical figures like Martin Luther King and Steve Jobs and all these just amazing figures in history. And by the end of it, she wakes up and she's inspired to seize the day and just kind of do whatever she wants to do in life. And as soon as I read the script, I was like, oh, this is going to be really great. And I was happy to illustrate it. And I loved working with an author that gave me as an artist so much freedom to express myself through the visuals. Because like I had the script, I had the dialogue and everything. And she pretty much left the style up to me. So I kind of pitched to her. It's like, okay, we should do it in kind of like this Disney style meets like an oil painting style, because like I kind of am able to do both with the cartoony and the oil painting. So the backgrounds would be like kind of like Starry Night with more purples. And since it was a dream world, the sky was full of stars, but then like the ground beneath her was also stars as well. So it's like just a whole 3D diorama of, Starry Night. And then these two figures, the mother and the daughter, kind of learning about each other, empowering each other. So it's just a story that I really enjoyed illustrating. And I hope the author, Kamika, decides to do a sequel because I definitely want to illustrate it. And I was actually thinking like it would be cool to like animate it as well, but hopefully that'll happen in the future. So that's the one I've done. The one I'm working on now, I believe it's called My First Day. Author, her name is Danielle, and Danielle had this story. It's based on her daughter, I think, where she's going to ballet class and she starts off being nervous and shy. And then by the end of it, she's really confident in what she's doing with these ballet moves. There's a part in the book, probably my favorite part in the book that I've illustrated, where it's the ballet studio. And then you see behind the dancers and the teacher showing the students just how to do the different steps. There's a painting of stars, which is a callback to the first book that I illustrated. And then so the main character is dancing, looking to her mother and her teacher for comfort. So she fumbles a few moves and everything. She's really nervous. And then after being comforted, she ends up dancing, getting the steps right, and then she gets into like this Zen-like state. And then everything around her disappears. And it becomes like that same similar starry night background from the first book. So like you only see her dancing, you see the stars. So it's like you're pretty much in her viewpoint. Like she's just so focused on the dancing and having a good time that everything else around her is disappearing.
Oh my goodness. I love that. And I had to come back with I love children's books
Yeah,
because one, I love the visual. Because like you said, like I said earlier, I'm a visual learner. Like I love seeing things and that because it kind of everything connects for me in that way.
yeah.
And so all that to say, like, how did you get into illustrating children's books? I love this.
Cool. I'm glad you do. I think it comes from my love of comic books. I think
Okay.
it's a similar visual language. It's
Yeah.
storytelling. I really love writing stories, and I really love taking a story that's given to me and turning that into something else. So I think it's just one of those things. A potential client sees that you do comic books or illustration. They
Right.
might ask you if you do children's books. They're kind of like in the same wheelhouse. So it was something that I started doing after self-publishing my own stuff. And I think Kamika must have seen that. I think it was actually a referral. So the friend that referred me to her was familiar with my comic book work and then figured, I'd be a good candidate for working on this children's book. Because it's very similar, like just with the way children's books are written versus comic books, the visual storytelling. I've always thought like children's books have to have like a really strong visuals
Yeah.
because you got to hold a kid's attention with these books. So like for them to work, like you have to have strong images, that's supported by a great story too. And it's usually just can be like a line or a paragraph at most. So I think to me that was just like attractive, creating these stories that would inspire kids, and then just thinking of that while I'm drawing the images. Like there's one image towards the end of Dream Chronicles where it's just them hugging. But when I was drawing it, I just thought of how many kids would see this image and then be able to get lit up
Mm.
by not only what's going on in the story, but just making it okay for them to like hug their parents or something like that. Yeah, like just a lot of nuance that's in children's books that I enjoy bringing to the forefront with my art.
It is so beautiful. And I really feel like people who cater to children in some way artistically, even down like you being working in paraprofessional work, like it's like that type of heart, right? To really care for children and provide support for them. It means so much to me because I love children. Like I love them.
Yeah.
Because I feel
Good.
like that they're the way they see things, most children, I can't say all children, but the way they see things, the way they, take in information, it's so literal in a lot of ways. And for us to provide that support and that care behind that, it sticks with them. Like you'll hear things from kids that you worked with in the past, and you're like,
Yeah.
that impressed you in that way, and it's just like you
Yeah.
never forget it. That's one of my main reasons why I love children's books, and I love people who are really trying to, impress upon kids, love and support and care, so that they take into their adulthood. So
Yeah.
it's so special. I love that. So, Raheem, I know you said you're going to Barcelona.
Yeah. In
So
March.
this work that you're doing in Barcelona, is this also something that's leading into like the the visual. I'm blanking on words here. Hello, Alicia.
No
Is it like the same type of work you've done in the past, like where you've gone and worked remote, or is it something completely some new type of project?
So Barcelona is kind of comes out of a promise I made to my wife, like when we were dating way back,
Ah,
because she knew that I went to Europe like just a year before I met her. And I was like, okay, like you've never been there, like I'm gonna take you. And it just took a little longer than I thought to make it happen. But like me taking this trip with her, it's like I'll be able to experience it through her eyes. So it's pretty much like going to have a good time. I'll do a little bit of work out there, some photography, but the main intention is like for her to enjoy it, to see it, experience it, because she loves the water, she loves the beach, and that Barcelona has both. It has that, it
right.
has a great architecture, it has great food. So it'll be more like a fun trip than anything. But I think I'll be taking pictures and journaling and just coming up with stuff that I'll be able to take back with me and kind of turn into some projects when I get back.
I love that. And I have to, I could literally talk to you all day. Like you have seriously, because your energy is just so beautiful,
Thank you.
and you can just tell that the life you've created is something that you look forward to every single day. Like you can
I
just
do, yeah.
feel it, and I love that about just who you are.
Thanks.
Trust me, you can see it. Like it shines through you. Oh my gosh. So, oh my goodness, Raheem, this was amazing. And I will share this information for y'all in the show notes as well. Thank you so much. You are such a beautiful soul. You have no
Thank you.
idea. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank y'all for listening to this week's episode to the Eating Podcast. I'll see y'all. Thank you so much.